The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as the holographic display flickered to life. Ambassador Crystal, a tall being covered in iridescent scales, stood at the center podium with his 4 arms crossed in what most species recognized as deep concern. "Fellow council members," he began, his translator device humming softly, "I have called this emergency session to discuss a matter of grave importance. The humans have done it again." Murmurs rippled through the gathered delegates. The Veloxy representative, a creature that resembled a large insect with gossamer wings, clicked her mandibles nervously. The Grothian ambassador, who looked like a walking boulder with eyes, shifted his massive weight from one foot to another. Everyone knew that when humans were involved, things rarely went according to plan. "What have they done this time?" asked High Counselor Muravan, an elderly being with skin like flowing water. "Have they befriended another apex predator, built another impossible machine, started another war they were not supposed to win?" Crystal's scales shifted color slightly, showing his discomfort. "Worse, they have caught the Void Runner." The chamber erupted into chaos. The Void Runner was a legend among space-faring races. It was a pirate ship that had terrorized the outer colonies for over 300 standard years. Its captain, a brilliant Nexari criminal named Zethros, had evaded every fleet, every trap, and every hunter sent after him. The ship was the fastest in the known galaxy, capable of jumps that no other vessel could match. Zethros had become almost mythical, a ghost that appeared, struck, and vanished before anyone could respond. "Impossible," the Veloxy delegate chittered. "The combined fleet spent 50 years trying to catch that ship. They failed. The Merchant Coalition hired the best bounty hunters in the galaxy. They failed. How could a single human ship succeed where all others did not?" Touched a control on his podium. The holographic display changed to show a small human vessel called the Endurance. It was not impressive by galactic standards. The ship was old, with visible patches on its hull and an engine configuration that most engineers would call barely adequate. Next to the sleek, deadly image of the Void Runner, it looked like a prey animal standing next to a predator. "The answer," Crystal said slowly, "lies in something the humans call persistence hunting. I have requested Captain Sarah Chen to address the Council and explain how she accomplished what our greatest warriors could not." A side door opened, and a human woman walked into the chamber. She was of average height for her species, with dark hair pulled back in a practical style and eyes that held a calm that many in the room found unsettling. She wore a simple uniform without decoration, and she moved with the easy confidence of someone who had nothing to prove. "Thank you for having me," she said, her voice steady. "I understand you want to know how we caught Zethros. The answer is simple. We just never stopped following him." The Grothian ambassador made a rumbling sound. "That is not an answer. Many have followed the Void Runner. All lost him within hours." Captain Chen smiled slightly. "With respect, Ambassador, they did not truly follow him. They chased him. There is a difference." She walked to the holographic display and touched a control. The image changed to show the planet Earth, then zoomed in on a vast grassland under a hot sun. "My ancestors," she began, "lived on a world that was sometimes very harsh. They did not have claws like the Grothians. They did not have wings like the Veloxy. They could not run as fast as the animals they needed to eat. But they had 2 things that most creatures did not have. They could sweat to cool their bodies, and they had minds that could plan for a future they had not yet seen." The display showed primitive humans, nearly naked, jogging across the grassland. In the distance, a 4-legged animal was running away from them. "When our ancestors hunted, they did not try to catch their prey in a single sprint. They knew they would lose that race. Instead, they followed. They walked and jogged under the hot sun for hours, sometimes for days. The animals they hunted were faster, but those animals could not sweat like humans could. Those animals would run, then stop to rest and cool down. And when they stopped, our ancestors would appear on the horizon again, still coming, never stopping." The display showed the hunt continuing, the animal growing tired, the humans, sweating but still moving, getting closer each time. Eventually, Captain Chen said, the animal would collapse from exhaustion. It could not run anymore, and my ancestors would walk up to it and claim their meal. This is persistence hunting. It is not about being faster. It is about never giving up, about being the thing that just keeps coming no matter what. She turned to face the council directly. This is how we caught the Void Runner. We did not try to be faster. We knew we could not match his ship's speed. Instead, we became the thing that never stopped following. We became his nightmare. The chamber was completely silent now. Every delegate was focused on the small human woman who spoke of hunting as if it was something sacred. Zethros was used to being chased, she continued. He was brilliant at escaping chases. He would jump and his pursuers would try to predict where he went. They would guess wrong and he would be gone, but we did not try to predict. We did not try to catch up. We simply followed the trail he left behind and we kept following. Every jump, every stop, every hidden port. We were always behind him, not close enough to catch, but close enough that he knew we were there. The Veloxy delegate leaned forward. How long did this hunt last? Captain Chen's smile faded into something harder. 14 months. 14 months of following, of never losing the trail, of showing up in every system he fled to, sometimes days after he left, sometimes hours. 14 months of being the humans who just would not stop. And your crew, asked High Counselor Muravan, how did they endure such a hunt? Humans are built for endurance, Chen replied. Our bodies are minds. We evolved to keep going when everything said we should stop. My crew rotated shifts, rested when they could, but there was always someone watching, always someone tracking. We became a machine with one purpose, to follow. She touched the display again, and it showed a star map with a long, winding path marked in red. The path twisted and turned, covering vast distances across dozens of systems. This is the route Zethros took trying to escape us. He jumped further than any ship in history. He visited ports no one knew existed. He called in favors, hired decoys, tried every trick he knew. But every time he looked over his shoulder, we were there. Maybe a day behind, maybe a week, but always there, always coming. The council members exchanged glances. Some looked disturbed, others looked fascinated. The concept of a predator that simply refused to stop was alien to most of them. Their species had evolved different survival strategies: fight or flee, hunt in packs with overwhelming force, ambush and surprise. The idea of just following forever, of wearing down prey through sheer persistence, was something new and troubling. When did he realize he could not escape? Asked Crystal. Captain Chen's eyes grew distant, remembering. About 10 months in, we received a communication from his ship. He was angry. He demanded to know why we would not give up. He offered us money, more money than most humans see in a lifetime. He told us we were insane, that no one had ever followed him this long, that we had to stop eventually. She paused. We told him we did not have to stop. We told him we could keep following for as long as it took, years if necessary, decades. That there was no corner of the galaxy far enough, no hiding place deep enough, that we were humans and this was what we did. We followed, we endured, and eventually we caught what we hunted. The transmission had arrived on a cold, artificial night aboard the Endurance. First Officer Marcus Webb was on the bridge when the communication light blinked. He had been reviewing supply inventories, calculating how much longer they could continue the hunt before they needed to resupply. 14 months of pursuit had stretched their resources thin, but not past the breaking point. Never past the breaking point. Captain, to the bridge, he said into the comm system, keeping his voice calm. We have incoming communication from the target. Sarah Chen arrived within minutes, her hair still damp from a quick shower, her eyes alert despite being woken from her rest cycle. She had learned long ago to go from sleep to full awareness in seconds. It was another gift from humanity's past, from ancestors who had to wake ready to face predators in the night. "Put it through," she ordered, settling into her command chair. The main screen flickered, and then the face of Zethros appeared. He was Nexari, which meant he looked somewhat like a fox with too many eyes and fingers that bent in directions that human hands could not. His species was known for their intelligence and their speed, both mental and physical. Zethros was considered exceptional even among his own kind. But the face on the screen did not look like an exceptional predator. It looked tired. The multiple eyes were slightly unfocused, the fur around them matted and unkempt. 300 years of successful piracy had not prepared Zethros for this kind of pursuit. "Human," he said, and his translator made the word sound like a curse. "Why are you still following me?" Sarah leaned back in her chair, keeping her posture relaxed. It was important to show no urgency, no desperation. They were not the ones who were tired. They were the ones who could keep going forever. "You know why," she replied simply. "I have paid off greater threats than you. I have outrun faster ships. I have escaped better hunters." Zethros's voice carried a note of genuine confusion beneath the anger. "What makes you different?" "We are not trying to be faster or better," Sarah said. "We are just not stopping." "That makes no sense." The pirate's fur bristled with frustration. "Every hunter stops eventually. They run out of fuel, they run out of money, they run out of patience. They give up and go home. Why will you not give up?" Sarah looked at him for a long moment before answering. "Because we are human, and this is what we do." She could see the confusion in his alien features. To Zethros, the hunt was supposed to be a contest of speed and cleverness. He was faster, so he should win. That was how the universe worked. The quick survived and the slow were left behind. But Sarah and her crew were not playing that game. They were playing a different game entirely, one that Zethros had never encountered before. They were not trying to catch him in a single moment of superior speed or tactics. They were simply following, waiting, enduring. Eventually, he would make a mistake. Eventually, his ship would need repairs he could not get while running. Eventually, his crew would fracture from the stress of constant flight. Eventually, he would break. And they would still be there. "I am offering you 10 million credits," Zethros said. "More than your ship is worth. More than you could make in 100 years of honest work. Take the money and leave me alone." "No." The single word seemed to stun him. Sarah could see him processing it, trying to understand how someone could refuse such an offer. In his world, everyone had a price. Everyone could be bought or scared or outmaneuvered. 20 million then, 50, name your price, human." "There is no price," Sarah said. "You attacked a colony ship 8 months before we started hunting you. The Stellar Dawn. 4,000 colonists, including 600 children. You killed them all to take their cargo." Zethros's eyes flickered. That was business. There is always collateral damage in business. "Those were children." Sarah's voice did not rise, but something in it made her crew sit up straighter. "Human children, and humans do not forget, humans do not forgive, and humans do not stop." She leaned forward slightly. "You can run for another 10 months, another 10 years. It does not matter. We will follow. We will chase. And someday when your ship is broken and your crew has abandoned you, when you cannot run anymore, we will be there. Not because we are faster, because we are still there, because we never stopped." The communication ended. Zethros had cut the connection. Marcus Webb let out a breath he had been holding. "Do you think he believed you?" Sarah shrugged. "It does not matter if he believed me. What matters is that we keep following. The truth will prove itself." She stood and stretched, working out the tension in her shoulders. 14 months of pursuit had taken its toll on all of them, but Sarah had been careful to manage her crew's welfare. Regular rest cycles, recreation time, counseling sessions for those who needed them. Humanity had not survived by pushing themselves to death. They had survived by pushing just hard enough for just long enough. "How are the crew?" she asked Marcus. Tired but determined, he replied. Dr. Patel says morale is actually higher now than it was 6 months ago. Something about the chase becoming personal. We are not just following orders anymore. We want to catch him. Sarah nodded. This was the dangerous part. When the hunt became personal, people could make mistakes. They could push too hard, take unnecessary risks. She would need to watch for that. But she also knew it was necessary. Persistence hunting was not just a physical challenge. It was a mental one. The prey needed to know that the hunters were motivated, that they would not give up, that there was no escape except complete exhaustion. Get some rest, she told Marcus. We have a lot more following to do. She returned to her quarters and lay on her bunk, staring at the ceiling. In her mind, she could see the star map, the long winding path of their pursuit. They had crossed through territories belonging to a dozen different species. They had refueled at stations that did not appear on any official charts. They had weathered engine troubles, navigation errors, and one close call with a nebula that had nearly killed them all. But they had never stopped. They had never even considered stopping. That was the secret, really. Other hunters saw the chase as a problem to be solved. How do we catch the Void Runner? How do we predict his next move? How do we outsmart him? Sarah did not ask those questions. She only asked one question: can we keep following? And the answer was always yes. 4 months later, the Void Runner's luck began to fail. It started with small things. A fuel line that cracked under the stress of constant high-speed jumps. A navigation computer that began giving slightly incorrect readings. Crew members who could not handle the unending pressure and demanded to be dropped at the nearest port. Zethros had been a pirate for 3 centuries. His ship was legendary for its speed and its maintenance. But no ship could run forever without proper care, and proper care required time. Time that Zethros did not have. Every time he stopped to make repairs, the Endurance drew closer. Every time he tried to hide, they found his trail. Every delay brought the humans that much nearer. He tried everything he could think of. He flew through dangerous space, hoping the humans would turn back. They did not. He doubled back on his own trail, trying to confuse them. They picked up his path and continued following. He sent decoy signals, hired other ships to pretend to be the Void Runner. The humans investigated each lead, confirmed they were false, and returned to the real trail without complaint. They are insane, his first mate, a scarred Grothian named Thuckville, rumbled as they made their 47th jump in as many days. No sane species behaves this way. The cost of their pursuit must have exceeded any reward they hoped to gain. They do not care about reward, Zethros replied. He had been studying humans obsessively since the chase began, trying to understand his pursuers. What he had learned disturbed him deeply. They care about the hunt itself. To them, this is natural. This is what they are built to do. Built to do. No species is built to chase forever. Humans are. Zethros brought up images on his personal screen. Ancient humans running across grasslands. Modern humans competing in something called an ultramarathon, running hundreds of miles without rest. Human soldiers marching for days with heavy packs. Human explorers crossing frozen wastelands on foot. Their entire evolution was shaped by this. They are not fast. They are not strong, but they are relentless. They simply keep going. Thuckville made a sound of disbelief. Then how do we escape them? Zethros did not answer. He was beginning to fear that they could not. The breaking point came 3 weeks later. They had found a hidden repair station in the outer reaches, a place so remote that it did not even have a name. The station's owner, an old Veloxy who had retired from smuggling, promised them safe harbor and the time they needed to make repairs. For 5 days, it seemed like they might actually escape. The humans had lost their trail somewhere in the Darkwind Nebula. For the first time in 18 months, no one was following them. Then, on the 6th day, a familiar ship appeared on the long-range sensors. The Endurance, battered and worn, its hull covered in the dust of 100 worlds but still flying. still coming. No, Thuckville whispered. It is impossible, we lost them in the nebula. But they had not lost the humans. The humans had simply taken a different path through the nebula, one that was longer but safer. They had lost time, fallen further behind, but they had never stopped following. They never stopped. Zethros stared at the sensor readings for a long time. Something in him was breaking. He could feel it. The certainty that had carried him through 300 years of successful piracy was crumbling. He had always known in his heart that he could escape anything, outrun anything, that his speed and cleverness would always save him. But he could not outrun something that never stopped coming. He could not cleverness his way past an enemy that did not care about being clever. He could only run, and run, and run, until he could not run anymore. "Captain," his helmsman said nervously, "what are your orders?" Zethros continued to stare at the screen. The Endurance was not moving to intercept. It was simply sitting there at the edge of the system, watching, waiting, like a predator that knew its prey was exhausted, like a hunter that had all the time in the world. "Plot a course for the nearest jump point," Zethros heard himself say. "We run again." But even as he gave the order, he knew. He knew that his ship was falling apart. He knew that his crew was breaking. He knew that there was no port left that would shelter them, no trick left that he had not tried, no escape that he could find. And the humans would follow. They would follow until he had nothing left, until the Void Runner was a drifting hulk in empty space, until Zethros himself was too exhausted to resist. Because that was what humans did. They followed. They endured. And eventually, they caught what they hunted. The final chase lasted 32 hours. It began when the Void Runner's primary engine finally gave out. The ship had been pushed too hard for too long, and something deep in its machinery simply broke. Zethros felt it happen, a shudder running through the hull that he knew meant death. They still had their secondary engines, but those were meant for maneuvering, not for high-speed flight. The Void Runner slowed, and for the first time in 18 months, the Endurance began to catch up. Sarah was on the bridge when the gap started closing. She had been waiting for this moment, planning for it, but now that it was happening, she felt strangely calm. There was no excitement, no triumph, just the quiet satisfaction of a hunt nearing its end. "All hands," she said over the ship-wide comm, "this is the captain. The target's engines are failing. We are moving to intercept. Prepare for potential combat." She did not expect combat, though. She had studied Zethros carefully over the months of pursuit. She understood him now. He was not a fighter at heart. He was a runner, an escape artist. His whole identity was built on being the one who got away. That identity was about to shatter. The hours crept by. The gap closed slowly. The Endurance was not a fast ship, and even crippled, the Void Runner was faster, but not fast enough. Not anymore. At hour 20, Zethros sent another communication. He looked terrible. His fur was matted and falling out in patches. His eyes were sunken, unfocused. His ship's bridge, visible behind him, was in disarray. Sarah could see damage that had not been repaired, stations that had been abandoned. "Why?" he asked. His voice was barely above a whisper. "Why would you not let me go? Why would you not take the money and leave me in peace?" Sarah considered her answer carefully. "Do you remember the stellar dawn?" A flicker of something crossed his face. Confusion, memory, the colony ship, that was business. "You remember the children?" He did not answer, but his silence was an answer of its own. "I grew up on a colony world," Sarah said. "My parents were farmers. My grandparents came from Earth on a ship just like the stellar dawn. When I was young, I used to wonder what it would be like to travel on one of those ships, to be part of that hope for a new beginning." She paused. "Then I grew up and joined the fleet. I saw what happens to those ships when pirates like you find them. I saw the bodies. I saw what was left of the children." Zethros said nothing. He seemed almost unable to speak. "You asked why we would not stop," Sarah continued. "The truth is we could not stop, not because of orders, not because of duty, because we are human, and humans do not stop. We do not give up. We do not let monsters go free just because they can run faster than us." She leaned forward, her voice dropping to something that was almost gentle. "You were never going to escape us, Zethros. From the moment we started following you, your fate was sealed, not by speed or by cleverness, by time, by endurance, by the simple truth that we would keep coming forever and you could not run forever." The pirate's eyes finally focused, really focused, and he stared at her through the screen. Sarah saw understanding dawn in those alien features, true understanding, perhaps for the first time. "You are predators," he whispered. "Not like us, not like anything I have ever seen. You are the kind of predator that never stops, the kind that follows forever, the kind that makes prey die of fear before you even touch them." "Yes," Sarah said simply, "we are." The communication cut out, and 12 hours later, when the Endurance finally pulled alongside the Void Runner, they found the airlock open and the crew waiting to surrender. Zethros himself was sitting on the deck of his command center, surrounded by the trophies of 300 years of piracy. He did not resist when the human soldiers came aboard. He did not speak when they put him in restraints. He simply stared at the humans with their strange, sweating bodies and their calm, determined faces. "I never understood," he said as they led him away. "I spent 300 years running, and I never understood that someday I would meet something I could not run from." Sarah watched him go. She felt no satisfaction, no triumph, just tiredness. The hunt was over. Now came the long journey home. But as she walked through the captured ship, seeing the faces of her crew as they secured the vessel, she allowed herself a small moment of pride. Not in herself, not in her ship, in her species. They had evolved on a harsh world with fast predators and scarce resources. They had survived not by being the fastest or the strongest, but by being the most persistent. They had chased their prey across ancient grasslands until that prey collapsed from exhaustion. And now, thousands of years later in the vast darkness of space, they did the same thing. Because that was what humans did. They followed. They endured. And eventually, always eventually, they caught what they hunted. Captain Chen finished her presentation to the Galactic Council. The chamber remained silent for a long moment as the delegates processed what they had heard. Finally, High Counselor Muravan spoke. "This persistence hunting, is it common among your species?" "It is fundamental to what we are," Sarah replied. "Our bodies evolved for it. Our minds developed to support it. The ability to plan, to hope, to imagine a future where we succeed even when the present says we should fail. All of these came from the same place, from the need to keep following, keep trying, keep going." The Grothian ambassador stirred. "This explains much about your species, the way you fight wars that should be hopeless, the way you explore space that should kill you, the way you build things that should be impossible." "We do not know when to quit," Sarah said with a slight smile. "Some species consider this a flaw. We consider it our greatest strength." "It is terrifying," the Veloxy delegate chittered. "The idea of a predator that simply never stops, that follows forever, that wears you down no matter how fast you run." "Yes," Sarah agreed, "it is terrifying to the prey." She looked around the chamber at the gathered delegates. Some were predator species, some were prey species, some were both or neither, but all of them were looking at her with new eyes, with understanding that had not been there before. "The Void Runner was a legend," she said. "He was the ghost that could not be caught, but he was still prey. And we were the predators who would not stop hunting. In the end, that was all that mattered." Crystal stepped forward. "Captain Chen, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I thank you for your explanation, and for bringing Zethros to justice." Sarah nodded. "It was our duty and our nature." She turned and walked toward the exit but paused at the door. Looking back at the assembly of aliens, she smiled. Remember this if you remember nothing else about humans. We may not be the fastest, we may not be the strongest, we may not be the smartest, but we are the species that does not stop, that does not give up, that keeps coming no matter what. She walked through the door, leaving silence in her wake. The delegates looked at each other for a long moment. Then slowly they began to talk among themselves, but there was a new tone in their voices, a new wariness. Because they had learned something important today, something that would change how they thought about the small, sweating primates from the third planet of a small yellow star. Humans were not dangerous because they were fast or strong or clever. Humans were dangerous because they were inevitable, because once they started following, they would never stop, because time was on their side and they knew how to use it. In the archives of the Galactic Council, a new entry was added to the file on human capabilities. It read, "Persistence hunting, the human ability to pursue prey over vast distances and time periods until exhaustion causes collapse. Warning, this ability translates perfectly into space-based pursuit. Do not assume that superior speed will guarantee escape from human hunters. They will follow until you cannot run anymore. They will always follow." And in the years that followed, when pirates and criminals heard that a human ship was hunting them, many chose to surrender immediately. Because they had heard the stories, they knew what humans were. They were the predators that never stopped. The ones who followed forever. The ones who always, eventually, caught what they hunted. 6 months after the capture of the Void Runner, Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of Frontier Station 7, watching ships come and go in the distance. Her crew had been given extended leave, and the Endurance was in space dock being repaired and upgraded. The old ship had earned its rest. A soft chime announced a visitor. Sarah turned to find Ambassador Crystal standing in the doorway, his scales shifting to a polite purple. "Ambassador, this is a surprise." "Captain Chen, I hope I am not intruding." Sarah gestured to the empty space beside her. "Please, I was just thinking." Crystal moved to stand beside her, his 4 arms folded in a relaxed posture. For a moment, they both watched the distant ships in silence. "I have been reading about your species," the ambassador said finally. "About your history, your evolution, your wars." "Finding anything interesting?" "Finding everything terrifying," he admitted with what might have been humor. "Your species fights wars that last for generations. You hold grudges that span centuries. You send your children into space knowing most of them will not return, and then you send more children to follow them." Sarah nodded slowly. "We do." "But the thing I find most fascinating," Crystal continued, "is that you do not see this as unusual. To you, this is simply normal. This is what life is." "What else would it be?" The ambassador's scales flickered through several colors. "Among my people, we have a concept called reasonable effort. It means doing what makes sense, pushing until the cost exceeds the benefit, and then stopping. This is wisdom among my species. This is intelligence." "And among humans?" "Among humans, you have a concept called never give up. It means continuing even when the cost has exceeded the benefit, continuing even when victory is impossible, continuing simply because you refuse to stop." His scales settled into a deep blue. "This is not wisdom. This is something else entirely." Sarah considered this for a moment. "When I was a child, my father told me a story about a human explorer named Ernest Shackleton. His ship was crushed by ice on the way to our planet's southern pole. He and his crew were stranded on frozen land with almost no supplies. By all reasonable measures, they should have died. Any reasonable species would have died." "What happened?" "They survived, all of them. Shackleton led them across ice and ocean, through conditions that should have killed them 100 times over. It took 2 years. They ate penguins and seals. They navigated by the stars. They never stopped trying to find rescue." Sarah turned to face the ambassador. When asked how he did it, Shackleton said something that I have never forgotten. He said, "Difficulties are just things to overcome, not things that stop you, things to overcome." Was silent for a long time. Finally, he said, "My people have been space-faring for 10,000 of your years. We have explored, conquered, and lost more worlds than your species has names for. We consider ourselves wise, ancient, superior to younger races. But I am beginning to understand that wisdom and age do not always equal strength. Your species is young, reckless, often foolish, but you have something that we do not have, something that we lost long ago if we ever had it at all." "What is that?" "The refusal to accept defeat." His scales darkened. "We see a situation that cannot be won and we acknowledge reality and move on. You see a situation that cannot be won and you try to win it anyway. Sometimes you fail, but sometimes, impossibly, you succeed." Sarah smiled slightly. "We call it hope." Hope, the ambassador tested the word. Such a small word for such a terrible thing. "Terrible." "To your enemies, yes." He turned to face her fully. "Captain Chen, I came here to tell you something. The Council has been discussing humanity's role in galactic affairs. Many members believe you should be limited, contained, kept from expanding too far too fast." Sarah's expression did not change. "And what do you believe?" "I believe it does not matter what we believe. I believe that trying to contain humanity would be like trying to contain the tide. We might hold you back for a while, but eventually you would overcome us. Not because you are stronger, because you would never stop trying." He moved toward the door, then paused. "The vote was held yesterday. We will not try to limit your expansion. Instead, we are offering humanity a full partnership in the Galactic Council, equal standing with the elder races." Sarah blinked in surprise. "That is unexpected." "It is practical," Crystal replied. "Better to have humanity as an ally than as an enemy. Better to have the species that never stops working with us rather than against us." He paused at the doorway. "Also, we have received reports of a new threat in the outer systems, a hive species that has been raiding colonies for the past 5 years. They are fast, adaptable, and impossible to predict. Our fleets have been unable to stop them. And you want humanity to hunt them. We want humanity to do what you do best." His scales flickered one final time. "We want you to follow them until they cannot run anymore. We want you to be the predators that never stop." Sarah stood alone on the observation deck for a long time after the ambassador left. She thought about her crew, scattered across a dozen worlds on their well-earned leave. She thought about the Endurance being rebuilt in space dock. She thought about the long months of pursuit, the exhaustion and determination, the simple refusal to stop. And she thought about the future, a future where humanity took its place among the stars, not as conquerors or geniuses or warriors, but as what they had always been. Persistence hunters. The ones who followed. The ones who endured. The ones who never, ever stopped. She smiled and turned away from the viewport. There was work to do. There would always be work to do, and humanity would do it the same way they had always done everything. One step at a time, one day at a time, one chase at a time. Until the job was done. Because that was what humans did. And that was what made them dangerous. Not their speed, not their strength, not their weapons or their technology or their numbers. Their persistence. Their endurance. Their absolute, terrifying refusal to ever, ever give up. In the cold vastness of space, in the silence between stars, that made them the most dangerous predators the galaxy had ever known. And they were just getting started.